Although it does not make the top 10 of the most visited parks in the nation, Arches National Park is definitely a popular spot for all tourists alike. Arches is located 5 miles north of Moab, Utah, and is home to over 2,000 natural sandstone arches, including the world-famous Delicate Arch. Within its 76,679 acres, it contains the highest amount of natural arches in the world. The IUCN determines Arches National Park to be under Category 2. Humans began inhabiting the land that is now Arches National Park around 10,000 years ago as hunter-gatherers. They moved to the area after the Ice Age. Approximately 2,000 years ago, these hunters and gatherers began growing plants around the Four Corner area of the United States as food supply. Around 700 years ago, these hunter-gatherers began to migrate out of the area. However, the reasons for this migration is unclear. Not much was left by these people. However, multiple ancient drawings have been discovered on the surfaces of rocks and can still be seen today by tourists. In 1923, Alexander Ringhofer, a prospector, began working to gain publicity for the region in an effort to have the area designated as a national park. Ringhofer used the railroad industry as the leaders for this campaign after guiding them through the area and presenting its potential for tourism. 7 years later, in 1930, President Herbert Hoover signed a presidential proclamation that reserved 1,929 acres in a place called the Windows and 2,600 in a place called the Devil's Garden for the establishment of Arches National Monument, according to National Geographic. Since then, the boundaries have been increased numerous times, continuously expanding the park. In 1971, the status of Arches National Monument was advanced to Arches National Park by former President Richard Nixon, which is what it is known as today.
Although Arches National Park has a high profile for being spontaneously beautiful and healthy, the threats to this protected area are severely beginning to increase and having an effect on the biolife, environment, and scenic views that tourists enjoy. The direct threats within Arches National Park revolve around the environment, which include pollution, funding, socioeconomic, and institutional factors. The direct threat we will highlight is the impact of overvisitation of tourists in this area. History of the park has given a very good reason to highlight this issue. Before being designated the Arches National Park, this land was visited and served as a host to a large amount of human life. Throughout the last decade, visits to Arches National Park have steadily gone up. However, the trend in the last 4 to 5 years has changed otherwise. From 2004 to 2014, visitation increased from 700,000 to over 1 million, an increase of more than 76% in 10 years. In many cases, the plants and soil from these areas are drastically changing due to the erosion caused by human factors. An example of this includes many of the bioplant species, such as the black brush's roots. They pull up and are being exposed, giving the plant a shorter lifespan. Another underlying cause to this issue is the need for ecotourism for many visitors. According to High Country News, the number of visits to Arches has jumped nearly 20% since the Mighty 5 was launched in spring of 2013. This park, as well as several others around the world, has a unique significance in that it gives an experience to people that many other places couldn't. The more it has become popular, the more overcrowding has taken place. This takes a sense of uniqueness away from visiting the park. This land offers a scenic view that many wish to enjoy, but the overpopulation is giving a big negative impact. This plays an important role in the cycle for the ecosystems, and if it is disturbed too much, visitation rights for the park could be taken away for an undetermined amount of time and/or limited to a certain capacity of people per day.
In order to combat this direct threat of high visitation rates, Arches National Park has implemented many management strategies and tools. On their website, they have put up a traffic and travel link in order for tourists to plan their travel accordingly if they want to avoid long lines and wait times. There is an entrance fee to get into the park also. The park's intentions were to possibly cut down on the amount of people if there was a fee, while also generating money to provide for the park. The park is rebuilding the 52-mile road system in Arches National Park in order to compensate for the high visitation rates. These new roads will allow for safer and better travel for the 4.1 million visitors the park gets each year. When the park hits their busy season, parking is limited. The park provides commercial tours from local companies to take visitors on guided tours and hikes to decrease the vehicle buildup. They are also working with local shuttles and taxis to reduce the cars in the park. Although all of these management tools are working, there have been some doubts when it came to reducing the visitation rates. The park participated in a congestion management study to find means to reduce traffic congestion, air pollution, greenhouse gas emissions, and the impacts of transportation on the park. They thought that a shuttle service would be a solution. However, several factors such as long roads, distance between areas, and costs of the buses would lessen the effectiveness of the shuttle. Although they implemented the shuttle service anyway, the park is in the process of looking at other congestion management solutions and strategies to alleviate traffic congestion. There are 3 key management principles that can be very effective in controlling the impacts affecting Arches National Park. One key principle is the idea that protected area managers need to intervene so that the impacts of human-caused threats are reduced. Doing so, managers and officials governing this park can reduce the tourist carbon footprint tremendously and try to restore the environment to what it once was. Management does not just include planning to reduce human impact, but also implementing it. They can do this by setting strict boundaries for the park and keeping visitors' paths and trails that are safer to tour than others. They will also need to set a supportive budget in order to fund researchers to evaluate, study, and find solutions to help grow the environment back to a healthy condition. Another key principle deals with threats on a long-term basis. According to Greenwire, one of the biggest long-term threats to Arches National Park is climate change. The global impact of changing temperatures and unusual weather phenomenons may be causing the arches to crack or fall, affecting the safety of visitors as well as their historic importance. One of these phenomenons, called thermal cycling, causes rock formations to expand and contract with rising and dropping temperatures. These variations can cause rock formations to break off or cause landslides. The last key principle deals with the issue of baseline syndrome. Baseline syndrome refers to the issue of different ecological situations and their issues that vary from generation to generation. Approximately 65 million years ago, when these arches and rock formations began to form, there was no threat of human interaction or conflict. In recent generations and years, the impact of human interaction has begun to take a toll on those formations. In order to continue with visitation, these dimensions of tourism need to be controlled, planned, and executed to ensure a prosperous future and the avoidance of threats for Arches National Park.